Okay, we are now welcoming. Let's see, let's get our next session up. This is the next shift in ISP operations. This sounds like a fun, predictive panel. We've got Ken and we've got Larry. Let's see here. Ken Garnett, we spent nearly 2 decades as co founder and C suite leader of Cal.net, rural broadband provider serving thousands of households across California. During that tenure, he held nearly every executive role, secured over 120 million in broadband funding, and completed 5 acquisitions. After retiring from Cal.net at the end of 2024, Ken founded BeyondChat.ai, an AI orchestration consulting practice for organizations ready to move beyond chat based tools into AI that completes goals, not just answers questions. Ken's a certified AI consultant and Mind Studio Level 3 certified AI agent developer. That's a mouthful and it sounds impressive. Continues to serve Cal.net as a part time strategic advisor and secretary of the board. Welcome, Ken.
Thank you, Jeremy.
And Larry Weidig, passionate about advancing the broadband industry through both technology and dialogue, with 25 plus years of experience spanning ISP ownership, network operations, and software development. I'm sensing a theme here, guys. It brings a unique perspective to broadband challenges. As founder and former president of Excel.net, understands the operational realities facing ISPs. Now, as a technical product manager at Sonar Software, he helps build the platforms that power broadband operators worldwide. Also, a co host of the Bandwidth podcast, where he and his fellow hosts deliver honest insights about what's really working and what isn't in broadband deployment, regulation, and operations. And I can give a plug for that. That's a great podcast. So, gents, I'm going to get off stage here and come back in about 15 minutes for some Q&A, hopefully. So, see you soon.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Thank you. And thank you to the Presim team for having us. We're your closing session. You've had 2 days, nearly 6 hours, and a lot of excellent content.
Yeah, there really has been a lot to absorb, and there have been some really excellent sessions. I unfortunately haven't been able to sit in on all of them, but I have been in on a lot of them. And, thanks again to Presim for putting this together. But today, Ken and I, we're not here to summarize it.
Now we're here to connect it together. So every one of these sessions you've seen has been excellent. Each one went deep on a specific AI capability. Might have been churn prediction, or support chatbots, or truck rolls, workforce augmentation. You've heard about a variety of ways that AI technology can assist ISP operations. And each one tool, one workflow, one piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, and all of those have been excellent. Every one of those definitely worth implementing on its own. But again, I think that's not the question that you and I are going to try and answer for them today.
That's right, Larry. We're here to tell you what we've noticed watching them. What we've noticed is nobody has asked the question that's been hanging in the room the whole time.
So every one of those sessions that you've hopefully all been able to attend and watch, every one of them described a smarter piece of a puzzle. Maybe it gave you, better signal. Maybe it provided for you a faster alert, or maybe even a sharper model.
Yeah, and what nobody asked really is what the picture looks like when those pieces connect. That's what this session is about. Not just another tool. It's what changes when you stop collecting tools and start designing systems. But here's the sharpest idea that we can give you today. Every tool you heard about this week answers questions. Then it waits, and you ask, and it responds. Then it returns to standby. That's really useful, but it's a different category of system than what we're describing here today.
So let's see if we can't just put this in some simple terms. We've got the chatbot, and we're all familiar with those. In fact, everybody's probably used those. You ask the question, is my service down? and it answers. The agent, however, it takes a different approach. It says, why is this subscriber having trouble? Can I fix it before they call? The agentic system takes this goal. We give it the goal. Let's resolve level 1 issues before they escalate. Then it goes on and executes the steps. It's going to do the triage. It's going to do the diagnostics. It's going to do the response. And if necessary, it's going to do the escalation. It's going to do those without waiting to be prompted each time.
That's right. Systems that complete goals, not just answer questions. And that's not a feature upgrade. That's a different architecture entirely. So let's make this real. An example, subscriber support, something every ISP on this summit deals with.
Yeah, unfortunately, this is far too real for me. I had to live in this loop for many years. So let's take some time and walk through it.
So step 1, a signal comes in. It could be on the network side, or it could be a subscriber contact.
The second step is obviously the triage step. We need to determine, is this some isolated event that we're dealing with on a single subscriber? Is this a pattern that we're seeing? Do we expect to see our support staff opening 50 tickets on this very soon?
Yeah, and step 3, run the diagnostics that a tier 1 tech would run, not just the easy ones, all of the diagnostics.
And then step 4, which you might find surprising, is the proactive outreach. The subscriber hears from us before they pick up the phone angry.
Yes, and step 5, if it needs a human, the escalation arrives to the human with everything already assembled. There are no cold handoffs. There's no explaining or re-explaining things.
And then we get to move on to step 6, where we confirm the closure and that loop is complete.
Exactly, Larry. And this is called the agentic harness. Notice where the human entered. It's at step 5, not at every handoff. At the moment, judgment was genuinely needed. No more manual cutting and pasting between tools along the workflow. So Larry, you actually lived this problem. When we talked earlier, you told me there was one specific handoff in your Excel.net days that cost you more than any other. Why don't you walk the audience through it, please?
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Ken. So definitely, I ran, as Jeremy introduced me, ExcelNet for 25 years. We were a regional ISP located in Wisconsin, and probably the same scale as some of you listening right now, maybe smaller than some of you who are listening right now, but we lived inside that loop that Ken and I just went through every single day. We just didn't have that exact language for it. There was nothing that we could refer to as the agentic harness. We lived in every one of those 6 steps, at some point. And obviously the most expensive handoff for that was, where the context didn't travel, where these steps lived in sort of an isolated event. So, the concrete pattern, and, this probably is going to make some of you who have lived in the support world shudder, is, you get that subscriber and they call in and they're frustrated because they're having problems with their service. And tier 1 answers the call, runs through all their questions, runs through that checklist of things that they need to do to try and solve that issue for them, and then they escalate it. Later on, your tier 2 picks up that ticket. They start asking similar questions, probably just at a deeper level, and hopefully to a higher skill set, trying to resolve that. Now, by the 3rd time your customer or subscriber has to explain that issue, they are just not annoyed at this point. They've probably already started looking at your competitors. Fast forward this problem, and you end up on your churn report writing, customer service issue. You close it, you file it, you move on. Every one of those reports, though, trace back to a similar moment. You had context that didn't travel with the escalation. And most importantly, you didn't react on it proactively. So it ended up being, 30, 40 minutes potentially of support staff time working on the issue. It isn't the true cost. We all know that the true cost was that 24-month subscription that we just lost 6 weeks later when they do move to your competitor. And that's why step 5 on that slide that we showed of the agentic harness is not just about customer service improvement, it's also a retention mechanism for you. So what is this shift? Once you can have something like this in place for your regional ISP, I say there's 4 things. The first is that you don't anymore have these cold handoffs. When escalations happens, the human gets the context. It's not just a simple re-explanation or it's time for tier 2 to start working on it. The work's already been done. And that's one of the things that we felt hardest when we were an operator.
Yeah, Larry. And then it's being proactive, not reactive. And this is arguably the most important point. The subscriber hears from you first before they notice a problem. That changes the customer relationship entirely. Or maybe they don't even need to hear from you at all because you fixed something before it became an issue. And then there's cross-function reach. The same orchestration logic that works in support can also work in the NOC, it can work in sales, it can work in field ops. Agents don't respect org chart lines. And human judgment is reserved, not eliminated, reserved. That's a feature, not a compromise. So here's the decision every operator in this room needs to make deliberately. Because if you don't, the system makes it for you accidentally.
As we see on the top one, the accidental design, that is certainly not the goal here. You don't want to end up with that bot making a phone call when it shouldn't, or sending out an email saying, hey, we resolved your issue when you still got an issue going on. Equally as bad as you can't, in this day and age, afford to have that human approving every step. You should have a well-designed system that can handle that. And I would say both of those would be what we would consider failures of intent. But the second, and what we're promoting here is, an intentional design, and that's very different. Identify where human judgment, and there are definitely places in this process where human judgment is irreplaceable. And so build this handoff for exactly that moment. Not as an afterthought, but as part of your architectural decisions. The question is, where does the human stay? Don't make that your afterthought. It's part of your AI implementation.
Yes, Larry, and it is the first design decision. So here's the design principle that we want to leave you with.
2 questions, completely different solutions.
The old question, which AI tool should we add next? That question leads to a collection, a pile of solutions. Each piece solves something, but nothing connects.
And the new question, the one we want you to take away from this is, what outcome do we want to own? And where do we have to have the human stay?
That is the question that leads to a system designed backwards from a goal. This is called harness engineering, not prompt engineering, not context engineering, harness engineering. Human in the loop by intention, not by accident.
Those are 2 very different systems, the old question versus the new question, they end up with two very different sets of purchases, and I guarantee they will give you two very different results. So we've spent 2 days accumulating all those puzzle pieces. We've had so many good presentations, and some of them can be put together to solve each of those parts of this harness engineering that we talked about. Now you got to take that real inventory of those tools and what they can do for your ISP.
Yes, Larry. So here's our invitation. When you wake up tomorrow morning, don't ask which tool to add next.
Instead, start with one loop, one pain point, one trigger, one decision path with one measurable outcome. And then orchestrate that, measure it, and expand.
And that is the shift from collecting tools to designing outcomes. So thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks, Ken. It was good. So we are now happy to answer any questions that may have come up during the presentation.
Thank you very much, both of you, Larry and Ken. I really enjoyed you walking us through some really good advice here. There's the voice of experience behind it for sure, and I do have some questions. So this one is, I think it's really for both of you, and let me see if I can phrase it succinctly, if possible. You talked originally about determining whether where the human stays. That's really, it seems like a lot pins on this, and I love the fact that you're really introducing this idea that we need to figure out this harness engineering. These are decision points that are going to be critical to how you, not just how you deploy AI, but it's how you manage the entire org, the business of what you do, the interaction between your business logic and human productivity and AI productivity. Like this is the nexus. And is there a way to, because I feel like we're hinting at this, but is there a way to decide where the human needs to be in the loop other than the school of hard knocks? Right? We've heard from people over the last couple of days, like, we've seen good chatbots and bad chatbots. Obviously, the bad chatbots are a way to learn this, via the school of hard knocks. Is there a way to do this that you found where, because this is kind of a new field. We expected people to use manual tools and still be very much the human in the loop. Since the human in the loop is still hypercritical, how do we find out where to keep the human in the loop today?
Yeah, that's a great question, Jeremy. The first inclination is just to be everywhere in the loop, right? Examine every.
Does that scale though, Ken?
But, right, it's exactly. You can't do that at scale. It's what I call verification collapse, right?
Because you're generating so much content, but you don't have a way to review it. The human becomes the bottleneck.
Yeah, the humans become the bottleneck, right? Agents can do more and more and more, but you can't keep up with it. So you have to design intentionally, right? You have to design what the scope is. You have to figure out where the important governance points are, right? And you have to decide what the agent can do autonomously with checks and feedback and internal cross verification of its work, and then send that on to the next step in the harness, right? And then intentionally design where it is that a human actually has to evaluate the result. But the important point is, when you design the harness, you put something in there that is self-governing, if you will. Checks for problems with, checks for guardrails, right? Problems with context bloat, checks for hallucinations. You might have multiple agents that check each other's work, right? one agent produces an answer, another agent checks the answer to make sure it's correct, and then informs the first one if it's not correct, and then sends it on through the harness to the next step.
So this seems like a combination of quantitative and qualitative decision.
Yes.
Larry, any thoughts about this?
Yeah, so I mean, what I've found, is really, and we've heard so many people say this: you have to have good process documentation when you're starting this process. It's the old adage of garbage in, garbage out. So if you don't understand your process, you're not going to find that exact point where that human needs to be. So you look at your whole process. We've all used these tools at this point often enough to know. Then when we break that down into the steps, where the steps are that the AI will be good at. And if you're not sure, then you need to be sure of that, because this harness engineering only works once you can build up that trust and that you've got those individual steps. It to me, it always surfaces like very clearly, this is the point where I need to intervene, because if I don't, it could just iteratively continue going off the rails, right? and even worse things are going to happen. Yeah. And that's what you don't want.
So right. It feels like for a while at least, there's a combination of like human judgment when you're validating a particular stage and saying, is this a problem that we can get high enough quality output from? So there's still human involvement there as you're deciding. And it sounds like it's fairly granular too, right, Larry?
Yeah, I mean, you've had that human judgment right as you build these pieces. And yet, everybody that we've heard talking, in the last couple of days, as they built those pieces, I guarantee there was a lot of human judgment involved before you've turned it over. So, but yeah. Now we've got a lot of these pieces and we know that they're good. So we can start putting those together into this harness to give us even, more effective solutions than just any one of those individual tools on their own.
Yeah. And when you put together a harness, you can't just toss it over the fence and then think it's going to last forever, right?
Right.
Everything changes so quickly in the space that you got to revisit that from time to time and see, did your business change or did the technology change? Right. Combination, and then readjust.
And that's a really good summary of what we've been hearing over the past couple of days. I've got just one last question for you, since this is, we're really trying to be forward looking here. Beyond customer support and operations, like, is there an area, and beyond, like, we're producing documents or we're using the summarization capabilities of LLMs, kind of the things that we've been hearing about for a few years. Are there other areas of an ISP's business that agents could create transformative value that you feel like people aren't talking enough about yet?
Yes.
Maybe you first, Ken?
Absolutely. Marcom. I don't think we heard anybody talk about Marcom, right? Using
How do you spell that?
Marketing communications. It's a shortcut. Marcom, yeah. Right?
I thought you were talking about a communications business.
No. Using agents to put together hyper-localized marketing materials. Every geography is different. And marketing people put together brochures and social media posts and, videos maybe and all kinds of stuff, but it's very generic and it's business wide. But with AI, you can hyper localize it to every different community, and and you can put out dozens of these a week instead of one every month or two.
Larry, any thoughts?
Yeah, that is definitely a great second use. Like I said, I didn't see all of the presentation, so I hope nobody did this. And I'm just saying, this is a new area.
It'll be worth saying again.
But I think scheduling, some sort of automated scheduling, and the harness to take that is something that at this point it could be very good at. It can make all sorts of decisions. It's pretty hard for me as an individual to look at 400 installs and where they all are and find out what's the best one to. And some of those are pretty deterministic problems, which you don't even need. That's the other thing, is make sure you need AI to solve some of these problems. I see people throwing AI at tools that are, completely solvable through deterministic processes.
Yes.
And
Somebody
that's
used the
bad
term
use of AI.
AI-shaped problems, and I think one of the things I've observed the past couple of days, we do have a session exactly on several sessions that talk about it, Larry, and I encourage people to go back and see those on optimizing truck rolls, which is a really great operational improvement that you can make. And I think that it's the ability to like build these agents and agents to build the harnesses and ways to keep people involved here and produce good quality output. They're getting people thinking about problems that aren't AI shaped, even in more creative ways. So, it's hard to say that there are no problems that can't be improved, but it might just be improved in a different way than people were thinking on that side of it. Yeah, Calvin Schultz says using AI in marketing is huge for a small ISP because you can build a lot of Facebook posts and schedule it. That's a Yeah. Thanks for that observation, Ken, and for you as well, Larry. Well, we do need to wrap up, and don't want to keep people too much longer past our sell by date. But I really thank you for coming in and being our final set of panelists here. And I appreciate your observations, your expertise, and thank you for spending time with us today, Larry and Ken.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This has been great.
Enjoyed it.
I did that. Yeah.
We'll see you soon, I hope.
All right.
Absolutely.
Bye-bye.